Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We're studying Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, entitled Bhagavatam is the Answer to All Questions. We're on text 21. Today is October 1st, 2021. Okay. So we're studying Chapter 10, text 21. Today's the 10th month and first day. Okay. So, Narayanam namaskritya naram chaivano tamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu, nityam bhagavata sevaya, bhagavat utamashloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. Text 21. Yada atmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine hi akshini tasya gyoti chakshu gunagraha yadatmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine yakshini tasya gotish chakshur gunagraha yadatmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine yakshini tasya yotish chakshur gunagraha yadatmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine yakshini tasya yotish chakshur gunagraha
Yadatmani niralokam Atmanam cha didrikshata Nirbine yakshini tasya Yotish chakshur gunagraha
Yadatmani niralokam
tadatmani niralokam
atmanam cha
didrikshata
nirbine yakshini tasya
yotish chakshur gunagraha Anandini, would you like to recite the verse online there?
Yes. Yadatmani niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine yakshini tasya Jyotish chakshur gunagraha
Yada, while Atmani, unto himself, Niralokam,
Niralokam,
without any light.
without any light.
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
his own transcendental body.
his own transcendental body.
Cha,
Cha,
also other bodily forms.
also other bodily forms.
Didrikshata,
Dirikshata,
desire to look upon.
desire to look upon.
Nirbine,
Nirbine,
due to being sprouted.
due to being sprouted.
He,
He,
for
for
Akshini,
Akshini,
of the eyes.
of the eyes.
Tasya,
Tasya,
of him.
of him.
Jyoti,
Jyoti,
the sun.
the sun.
Chakshu,
Chakshu,
the eyes.
the eyes.
Gunagraha,
Gunagraha,
the power of seeing.
the power of seeing.
Translation. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total creation is called tamas, or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe, for then one cannot see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself and all the creation as well. And thus the sun became manifested, the power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamascha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vansakalpate Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad-Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 21. Yaratmane niralokam atmanam cha didrikshata nirbine yakshini tasya gotish chakshur gunagraha. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Okay, so this very first statement in the purport stands out for me. The universe is by nature dense darkness. So it means that's the inherent nature of material existence. They're talking about the material universe there, dense darkness. We have some programs where we talk about, well, just like what's talked about here in this chapter. A few verses ago, we read about the Adyatmika body, Adi Devic body, adibhatic body. So it's described there's threefold miseries. Miseries coming from our own mind and body, miseries coming from other living entities, miseries coming from nature, demigods. And it's described that, so there's these inherent miseries in the material existence. And so sometimes we'll present, okay, so that's material nature. And then there's also disturbances and miseries coming from the propensity, the four defects, propensity to cheat and limitations and make mistakes and being an illusion. And then sometimes it's said, well, is that all there is to the material context? Say, no, there's also miseries coming from birth, death, old age, and disease. Is that all? No, there's also miseries coming from eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Anandini wrote, do you have to remind us again? Yeah, that's my service here. So then sometimes it's said, well, what about like joy and love and butterflies and rainbows?
Disney.
Yes, Disney, precisely. Right. What about that? That's also part of the material context. And I insist, no, it's not. It's not. No. So again, to state Prabhupada's statement here, the universe is by nature dense darkness. It's all of darkness. Now, okay, things like joy and compassion and empathy. Now, they are possible responses to the material context. There are possible responses. Yes, we can respond to the intrinsic darkness of material nature with light. Okay. But material nature itself, it's intrinsically darkness. It's described about this very book that Prabhupada instituted that we study each day, each morning, well, in our personal reading as part of morning program. So there's many verses in the Bhagavatam about the Bhagavatam. One of them is in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto. Krishne svadamupagate dharmagyana divisaha kalanasham drishamesha porinako dunodita. So it's described that this Srimad-Bhagavatam is brilliant like the sun. And it appeared, of course it's eternal, it appeared upon the disappearance of Lord Krishna about 5,200 years ago. It appeared upon the disappearance. And it's described, same term, just like Prabhupada says to you, the universe is by nature dense darkness. So the verse I just quoted describes people in this Kali, people who have lost their way, people who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of the age of Kali will get light from this Bhagavatam. So the ancient Vedas describe that this book in particular, along with Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, but this book in particular is meant to be the light of the age. It's meant to be the light of the age. People who have lost their vision, lost their way due to the dense darkness of the age of Kali will get light from this Purana, Purinarko Dunodita. So who, if we think about it, so practically anyone we encounter has lost their way due to the dense darkness. And if we realize we're lost, then that's a beginning. And if we're lost and we don't know we're lost, then we're really lost. And that's really a problem. That's really a problem. So this verse, it's about the sun. So the sun, because there's the sun rays, there's so many metaphors about the sun. There could be a whole course, not just a class. It could be a whole course of metaphors related to the sun. Okay. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakar. Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. We just met someone at Fresh Market yesterday named Maya. She was very kind. She gave us a secret discount. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no. So Krishna's like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Okay. So like there's the sun and then there's the clouds. Clouds represent Maya. But actually the clouds only exist because of the sun. Okay? Due to the sun evaporates the oceans, and then through the rain, then the rain clouds, the dark clouds come because of the sun. So similarly, it's not like Maya is like the devil fighting God. It's kind of a simplistic, childish conception. But actually, even Maya is a creation of Krishna, or emanation. Kali, Maya, Durga, existing for we can say the sun is covered due to the clouds. Well, actually, even if the whole sky is covered with clouds, it's not even a speck compared to the sun. So the sun doesn't get covered, but our vision, our minute vision gets covered. So it's described in the Brahma Samhita. Srishti stiti palaya sadhana shaktireka jayeva yasya bhuvanani bibarti durga itana upamapi yasya cha cheshta tesa govindamadi pusham tamaham bhajami. That Maya, she's actually a sincere, pure devotee of Krishna. Kali, Maya, Durga, Prakriti. And she's serving. She's like the warden of the prison house, Durga. Durga means fortress. She's serving under the order and for the pleasure of Sri Krishna, Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajam. So similarly, the sun's described here. So the sun there's actually like a demigod in charge of the sun. So we say, oh, that's mythology. That's childish. That's primitive. But if we look at it rationally, if we see like the light bulb there, so we say, so how's the light coming out of the light bulb? Just by magic? No. Did it just happen? No. There's actually an engineer at the electric company, when there's like a chief of business, a chief of finance, and there's quite a bit of intelligence behind that 100-watt light bulb. So then you got like, 100 quadrillion watts times a trillion from the sun. So it makes sense that there is a higher intelligence behind that wattage, a much higher intelligence than there is behind that 75 watts of the light bulb. So that's called Surya. So the sun god, actually all over the world, there's a lot of sun worship, Even Vishnu and I were talking yesterday, because in Vedas, Surya is the name of the sun god. It's actually Surya is the name of the post. And we can imagine like the country of Syria came from the Vedas, Surya, Iran, the Aryans, like that. And so the sun god is particularly important right there. First verse of 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Imam vivashvate yogam bhuktavan aham avyayam vivashvan manave praha manorikshvakave brabit. Krishna says, I spoke to this Bhagavad Gita like 120 million years ago to the sun god, whose personal name is Vivasvan. The post is Surya, like that. Okay, Vivasvan spoke it to his son Manu, who spoke it to Ikshvaku. Okay, so So the sun god also, just like Maya, Durga, the sun god also is serving at the pleasure of Krishna, serving under the order of Krishna. So it's described also in the Brahma Samhita. Yat chakshur esha savita sakala grahanam raja samasta sura murti ashesha teja yasya gaya brahmati kala vishesha chakro govinda madi purusham tamaham bhajami. That the sun god, source of heat, source of light, and does so much in the universe, all under the direction, guidance of Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So it's very clear in Bhagavad Gita, Yajantya Vidi Purvakam, those who worship the different demigods, whether it's Kali, the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, not realizing that they're servants of Vishnu, Krishna. They worship without proper direction, without true knowledge. Okay. So the Vedic aphorism is Tamasima Gyotirgama, come out of the darkness into the light. Again, Prabhupada writes, the universe is by nature dense darkness. Come out of the darkness into the light. So the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedas, it's like, okay, here's how to come out of the darkness into the light. I mean, most everyone will say, of course, I'm into the light, not the darkness. But then so much going on in the name of light is just thickening the dense darkness. Okay, so there's a verse in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna describing about knowledge, transcendental knowledge. He said, and when one is enlightened in such knowledge, then that knowledge lights up everything like the sun lights up everything in the daytime, another metaphor with the sun. So it's just like, let's say if it's dark out, like when it's dark and we're out, it's like we're scared. Like darkness, scared, ignorance. We're scared. And then even if with a few rays of the dawn, not the noon sun, but just with a few rays of the dawn, then we feel relieved, right? Then we're not, because then we can see. Oh yeah, okay, there's not a criminal behind that tree. That's not a dog attacking me. We can see where we're walking. And so, yeah, so this knowledge, to make it concrete, like cognitive, but then more than that, experiential knowledge of who I am. I'm not this body. I'm spirit, soul. And realization to live as a spirit soul, and it's like the sun is rising. Bayam dvitiya biniveshata syat. The root cause of all ignorance, misery, suffering, torment, anxiety, fear, bayam dvitiya biniveshata syat. The root cause of all fear, anxiety is mistaking, the core mistaking the eternal spiritual being that I am for the temporary material body. And so as long as that mistake's there, we can speak about the light or this or that. We're going to be in anxiety, fear, darkness, illusion, suffering. And to the extent that we realize who we are as spirit, soul, not the body, then and we act on that platform, then we're then the sun is rising. Then the sun is rising. It's just like it's simple. There's no way around that. And the Vedas actually, Srila Vyasadeva, yeah, it's described. Yayo samohito jiva atmanan tri gunatmaka. And then Anarto Pashamam Saksha, Bhakti Yogam Adhokshaje. Logasya Janta Dvams Chakre Sattva Samitam. He saw that people are suffering because they misidentify the spirit self with the material body. And so, and the solution is engage in bhakti yoga. We engage in bhakti yoga and we come to the light, not just in a new agey, fluffy way, but we realize who we are as the eternal spiritual being. But Vyasadeva realized that even though he had compiled all the Vedas, people will miss it. They'll miss it. They'll get distracted by demigod worship or trying to realize Brahman or karma yoga, varnashram, different things. So as a result of his compassion, because he really wanted to help people, he revealed the Srimad-Bhagavatam to give light to this age. So, so cultivating knowledge of the distinction between spirit, matter, spirit, and supreme spirit. What is prakriti? What is time? So the more we come to knowledge, then that's the light that removes our anxiety and replaces it with some emerging joy. I remember, some of you maybe have heard me tell the story, but this was back 1994, 95, and I had a class when I was getting my graduate degrees in social work and community organizing. The professor was Dr. Jerry O'Connor. He was already well into his 60s, been a professor for many decades. Anyhow, so we had some paper to write on subjects I'm not even interested in, the political organizing, community organizing, this and that. But I could see, okay, based on the nature of what the assignment is, actually the Bhagavatam speaks about this. This chapter is entitled Bhagavatam's Answer to All Questions. Okay, well, it doesn't deal with like politics and community organizing. Well, yes, it does. Yeah, so it's the answer to all questions if we're able to extract that. So basically, I wrote the paper in social science, social service, language, and I gave Bhagavatam, and then Jerry O'Connor, he actually was very embarrassing. He said, "You have a genius in this class." He's referring to me. I'm not a genius, but this is beyond genius. So, so we can imagine he's read and graded like thousands and thousands of papers. He was already like 65 years old, thousands and thousands of papers. But then I got that like my paper was, answering the same questions, and you can imagine he's pretty tired, But then like there was like light. There was like the light. It was like the light of the Bhagavat coming through, even in social work. No, it's possible. Yes. And yes, and it was light up. So it was just like shiny. So I never read a paper like this because I was just giving information, knowledge, vigyan from a place he'd never seen. It was like really exciting for him. And like somebody wrote me that actually he practically insisted, well, you have so much to offer, you need to do a PhD, which I wasn't planning to do. And then he got together with other professors who had similar experiences when I was in their classes, and they offered me, the Bhagavatam earned me $50,000 for that one. They gave me all these scholarships and stuff like that. That's not that shouldn't be the motivation to study Bhagavatam, just say, but it's be do have. So, so it's brilliant like the sun in any field of endeavor. Bhagavatam's the answer to all questions. When I was developing the Vedic personality inventory, again, I just stole it all from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, but that's where you do things. And I did this. Was it, well, as I said, confidence in academia means, or originality means you've hidden your sources well. Okay. So,
I think Picasso's a great artist still.
Picasso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great artist steel.
It's great artist steel. Yeah. And it's a great artist steel, right? Yeah. And if you hide your sources well, you're seen as creative and original. Hare Krishna. Yeah. And if you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many people, it's research. Okay. So on developing the Vedic personality inventory, so the principle is to establish for the world an empirical basis for happiness. Because the Vedas assert, to the extent that we develop sattvic worldviews, sattvic habits in all life areas, then that will correspond with happiness, joy, fulfillment, peace, security, all those experiences that we're looking for in our rajasic and tamasic activities and acquisitions. So sattvaism, that's why our name of our institute, Sattva. Sattva is the mode of nature that is just, it's closest to the light, closest to the original spiritual light. So in this universe, the source of light is the sun. But the source of the sun is Krishna. Krishna svadamo pagate. So, Dharmagana Divisa. So, sattva essentially means, sattva gun means where we get revealed to us that which till now was in the darkness. Actually, the past 2 Fridays, right at this time, we were just about to start foundational seminars. And so we did two consecutive foundational seminars. And so we could see that with just dozens of people that coming to sattva. Now, revealed. Now, even if that which is revealed is lower mode and rajasic and shame and hatred and jealousy, and one woman shared at one point in her process, she talked about a former partner had some bitter stuff with, and she was saying she had a recent interaction. He was like understanding and compassionate, and she shared, I hope he dies alone, a miserable death. She had a lot of hatred. It's a very terrible thing to say. You're supposed to say, I too have compassion for him, but she had a lot of bitterness. But you could see there was a light of spirit coming out from her, because she was denying how much hatred and bitterness she had. But then she brought it to the light, and it was like freeing for her. Okay. So that which is beach balled, that which is not perceived, that which is in the darkness comes to light. That's sattva. That's sattva. And so, so there's just, it's not, we don't need to live by chance. You never know. No. We cultivate sattvic habits in the guideline in all eating, sleeping, communication, working, financial management, management of time, management of space. There's a tamasic way to do it. There's a rajasic way to do it. There's a sattvic way to do it. And to the extent that we do it sattvic, and then we'll experience peace, fulfillment, contentment, compassion. We'll cultivate it. It's a science, a scientific, an empirical scientific basis for all those qualities we're searching for. Because sattva means, as described right here in the purport, yes, that the night is the real feature of the universe, for then one cannot see anything, including oneself. So sattva, we use that term a lot. The self turning towards itself in self-discovery and turning to the supreme in the spirit of devotion. So turning towards itself and self-discovery, you might say that's material sattva. And so we get revealed to ourselves. And just like we can't see anything without the sun. So we engage in bhakti. So we're connecting with Krishna, and then we can see ourselves. It goes both ways. We engage in bhakti, we realize who we are is not the body, spirit, soul. Or we can just handle, we use the, imagine you're looking at a photo of yourself when you were 5 years old, So that's, like Krishna is not directly in that. But essentially, we're doing the same logical process as in 2nd chapter Bhagavad Gita. So we come to realize who we are. That will lead to bhakti to the extent we're sincere. Or we just directly go to bhakti. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janiyat Yashavaragam Gyanam Chadhotakam. Engage in bhakti yoga to Sri Krishna Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and knowledge automatically comes. And with that realized knowledge of who we are, spirit, soul, we naturally become renounced, detached from darkness attempts at enjoyment. And then you might say the self turning toward the self and self-awareness, that's like material sattva. And then the self turning towards the supreme in an attitude of devotion, that's Shuddha sattva. That's spiritual sattva, which is spiritual sattva is not simply material sattva without any rajas or tamas. Spiritual sattva is a different entity. It's still called sattva though, because the same principle is there. That which is, but now it's completely on the positive side of revelation. It's not just revealing, not just shining light on darkness. It's simply increasing the light. So that's just like realization about the science of God, realization about Krishna's pastimes and Bhagavatam and like that. Okay. Well, I've spoken for a bit there, so I'll bring to a close. Yadatmani niralokam atmanam chadidvikshata nirbine yakshini tasya gotish chakshur gunagraha. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself in all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and attention. And I welcome any comments, questions, realizations.
It's interesting the point you made about, like, even if what we see is darkness, and even if what we see is dense,
Yeah.
the moment we see it,
Yeah.
that power of seeing brings us right away to the platform of sattva.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
often I see also like when people are stuck,
Yeah.
and if they don't know they are stuck or they are not acknowledging it, then they are stuck. But as soon as they experience the stuckness, they are not stuck anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we might say, experiencing the stuckness, immediately unstuck. So really being stuck, it's really resistance to the stuckness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems that most of what we create with the illusion of Maya, the energy of Maya, is resistance.
Yeah.
The moment we don't resist, in a sense, right away, we are on the Vasudeva's platform.
Yeah.
We may not be the pure devotee of Krishna.
Yeah.
But that's the place of letting go of resistance. That's Vasudeva. That's sattva. That's complete impersonal realization, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, when we talk about the material context, and it's like, well, it's also compassion and butterflies and Disney. Like, no, it's all darkness in different forms. And
it's perfect.
And it's perfect. That's it. And if to resist the pain of that, and this was a theme in the recent foundational seminar, because there's a quote by Tolstoy resisting sorrows creates suffering.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so to resist the pain of all that, yeah, then we're not receiving the lessons that are there. That was also a theme. I mean, I was 6 days in the seminar room in recent times. So that was the theme. So many came with realizations that they were experiencing their fear, their insecurity, their pain, and then they got like so many life lessons and realized knowledge. So the nature of matter is darkness. And example, just let's look at the birth, death, old age, disease, right? So it's like in some societies, the idea is the more materialistic society, well, let's hide the birth, death, old age, disease. Let's sterilize it. Let's get it out of the way. Whereas in societies where it's more apparent, when there's people down the street, it's not like immediately get them to a old age home or something like that. Then that's painful. This is disgusting. No, this is painful. Yeah, feel that. Be with that. Speaking to myself here, be with that, and then okay. So this is going to happen to my body too. It's going to happen. Actually, yesterday we went to. I was with Vishnu. We went to Adi Karta's. We got the ahimsa yogurt. He milks cows, so we got really first class dairy products in my house now. But when we happened to be there, so there was Adi Karta and there was Pancharatra and Atita Guna.
Wow.
I hadn't seen them for years. She took the course like 20 years ago. And but anyhow, so the two fellows there, they're like about 10, 15 years older than me, maybe a little more, like that. And so they were, they were talking about their different ailments and like that, and different things, like not debilitating, but kind of like old age is happening, right? And so then they asked me, how old are you? I said, well, this body recently turned 60. This body recently turned 60. So they said, oh, yeah. The next 10 years, you'll see this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. I was like, thank you very much. And it was good. Of course, we don't know. Because old age means proximity to death.
Mhm.
So we can think, I'm the oldest in this room, but we don't know. We don't know. Okay. So old age really means proximity to death. But that's the thing. So then when it's not hidden, then like we experience the pain, the fear, the misery, the suffering. And then we get to like, let me get serious about my eternal life. Let me get serious. Let me get more urgent. Let that pain, sorrow move. Let me not resist it. Let me experience it. And then let me transform my existence from the rat to the kitten. We're all familiar with that analogy, right? The jaws of the cat represent disease, old age, death, also birth. So let me be, and then it's not like, so it's very pessimistic. No, this is about real joy. This is about real joy. Let me dedicate myself to that happiness that will never be crushed by time. And then, a few drops here, I'm doing that more and more each year of my life. So I'm joyful. And then also frustrated that like, why don't I just like completely do it instead of this like 1.1%? That's my frustration. But so to resist the dense darkness of material existence. No, it should be Disney. It should be butterflies and multicolored unicorns. That's what it should be. And I'm going to just, no, it's dense darkness. It's dense darkness. Now, so very pessimistic about attempts for any substantial happiness in material existence. Very optimistic about the life of the kitten. And the life of the kitten, that's one, I'm dedicated to self-realization and all the misery and all the pandemics and the economic downturns and all the relationship troubles. Perfect. Om Purnamadaha Purnam Purna Purna Idachite. Purnasya Purnamade Purnameva Vishishite. Perfect and complete arrangement for my self-realization and for intensifying my enthusiasm for bhakti. That's a truly happy life that nothing can touch. Thank you, Mom.
There's no comment. I have someone. When you were speaking, I was thinking like my environment had been so much Western medicine.
Yeah.
So I've been so involved with it, and I can see how the foundation of the Western medicine is avoiding pain.
Okay. Yeah.
Avoiding, and if they can keep someone alive,
Yeah.
from their point of view, it's success.
That's success. Yeah.
Even if it's miserable, and it's kind of scary because there is no space in their system to allow the natural process of death.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the natural process of death to take place because they need to do so much.
Yeah. You said it's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary.
You're somewhat immersed in it, so you're seeing it up front.
Yeah, and also with Rohini took me to the hospital. I was having a small surgery. Of course, there's no minor surgery, you know.
Yeah.
And they made a mistake.
Oh.
There is no minor surgery.
Yeah.
And the nurse was speaking with us. And she was giving me a recommendation. You don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that. And then, yeah, of course, it's like,
Yeah.
it's common sense for me.
Yeah.
But what she was saying is that many people, they are so attached to their sense gratification
Yeah.
that they want a pill.
Right.
Like, I'm sick, but I need to go back to my golf course.
Yeah.
You cannot keep me here. I need to go back to my drinking and cigarettes, or I need to go back to my nightclub. And do you have a pill for that?
Yes.
And so much of the system is to support sense gratification.
Yeah.
The Western medicine is quick fix. Why? To go back to sense gratification. So on one hand, there is an obvious avoiding pain.
Yes.
And then on another hand is like, let's support as much as possible people's sense gratification.
Yeah.
And then that's very sad because the healing, like the disease, like is part of the context. Old age is a part of the context, and death is a part of the context. And all those contexts is a perfect and complete for our self-realization.
Yeah.
And through the modern civilization, including modern medicine, then there is a complete avoidance of the possibility for self-realization through disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, because experience our experience. So by going through the context, we're having experiences. By experiencing our experience, then that's the Vedic system. Then as life goes on, kind of like, I don't want this context anymore. I get it. It's dense darkness. It's dense darkness. So let me really make this my last birth. But then what you're sharing, Melanie, like kind of the Western approach to medicine, so-called healing, it's kind of to block the experience, to beach ball, to avoid the pain. And then that's just leading to more futile, miserable endeavors, birth after birth, because we're not fully experiencing our experience of the context.
It's quite demoniac.
It's demonic, yeah.
It's very demoniac because it's about like supporting the illusion of there is no pain.
Right.
And then really pushing self gratification.
Yeah. Really selling it strongly.
Yeah,
Yes.
selling it very strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a pill for you.
Yeah.
No matter what you share. Like we cannot hear more than one sentence, and after that we need to put a pill on it.
Okay. Paya.
I think it's a question and a comment at the same time, but I also agree with you on half the medical world. I wanted to share a quick comment. My mom is experiencing a kidney stone, and it's interesting because I asked her what they took her to the emergency room, and
Yeah.
what did they give her? But painkillers.
Yeah.
Versus, okay, well, water, how do we pass this thing? And so it's interesting because I think the painkillers are just gonna create more, stuff in her. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
The cure will be worse than the disease.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's painful to hear, and my mom has subscribed to that for so long, that a pill will make it all better.
Yeah.
And it's, I feel like it also goes back to your first line. It's like this material nature is inherently dark.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
It's scary. Yeah.
I don't know, it's challenging. I have resistance to it. I have resistance to the darkness. And when you said that, one thing I had questioned is like, well, if material nature is inherently darkness, is that also why, and I won't speak for anybody else, but me, like why I have so many negative thoughts inherently? I feel like as a foundational level, without Krishna consciousness, without connecting to Krishna, if I'm left by myself, I will think very dark thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm wondering is that because I'm in this material body, because I'm thinking about, even from the foundational, okay, going back to the diamond.
Yeah.
So is it that I'm inherently darkness, or is it that I'm the diamond? So or is it that, okay, I'm identifying with the body, or am I identifying with the soul? So that part it's kind of challenging and frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think a little bit frustrating that, like, well, I think that's what it is. It's also resistance of like, well, why does there have to be darkness?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I have that question / comment.
Thanks for your sharing, Paya. Yeah, so left to yourself without Krishna consciousness, you got a very dark thought. Join the club. Yeah, right. So me too. And that's always been the case. Nandini is saying she's part of the club too. Okay. Yes, and yes, okay. And so, so our material nature is intrinsically dark. And in one sense, those who have, relatively speaking, a more sattvic nature, and it's not by accident, because of our past desire and deserve, we created a more tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic nature. But so those that have more sattvic nature have advantages and disadvantages. Because if relatively it's more material sattva, I can see, I'm actually suffering less than this one. I'm actually had more peace and more fulfillment than this one. So it's hard to get urgent. Queen Kunti prayed, Janmeshwar Shushat Shuta Shubir, Edamanamana Puman, Nairahat Yavidatum by Tvamakinchana Gotra. She described Krishna as Tvamakinchana Gotra. You're the shelter for the materially exhausted. And if someone has pretty nice life relatively, of course, even nice life here compared to demigods on higher planets, it's terrible suffering. That's all, but just relative to who I'm hanging out with and who I'm seeing, then it's hard to get urgent. It's hard to get urgent. So one needs to be materially exhausted, which can happen. Like someone can have a lot of material facilities and then they realize this is all empty and useless. It's all empty and useless. They become materially exhausted. And someone could be very poor and terrible life, but they're not materially exhausted because they're just envious of, oh, he has a nice house and she has this, and then they're just greedy and envious. So yes, the material nature is darkness. And so because sometimes you go like, we get to the core of our self-defeating beliefs and it goes so deep. And it does go so deep. And it doesn't go as deep as the diamond soul. So that's why there's hope. Because we can go like, I just got layers and layers of grungy and deception and self-defeating, and beneath the fear is jealousy, and beneath that is shame. So, and sometimes we're in that process, experientially, analytically, and it just goes so to core, what can I do here? But then we can know, we can experience, but as deep as that goes, and maybe it is like 1,000,000 lifetimes or more of the mind being entrenched in the darkness of material life and all the selfishness of that. But even that's not near as core and deep as the spirit soul. So that's it. So even this morning, I woke up and I haven't had like a standard morning program for a while. So, and even today, because we're not starting at 5 a.m., but I woke up and I was in okay, you get it. Okay, okay, whatever. I took a shit like that. And then, and then I decided, okay, well, actually, I'm in my reading. I'm on fifth canto of Bhagavatam. And there's this wonderful, intense section all about the sun. Just so happens. And I thought, because I did want to channel that around, so I decided, let me just read one verse in purport. And it was, I had experienced that because I was in and I was in the mental stuff and anxiety and all that stuff. Which is not surprising because sleep means darkness. Sleep means darkness. So when we get up, we're in tamas. It's not surprising. But then I read not even one sentence. I chanted the Sanskrit, not even one sentence. And then I was connected with who I am as a spirit soul, at least relatively. And then I experienced transformation from darkness into light. And it wasn't, well, it is magical, but we can understand it because I was identifying with my material ego and mind, and I'm the doer, and I have to do that, but I don't have time to do that, but I forgot to do that yesterday. Okay, and then just light, I just connected with the light of the Bhagavatam, and I'm experiencing myself as a spirit soul immersed in transcendental vibration, and my whole experience changed. So yeah, we can get into how deep our material condition, and that requires courageous introspection to look at the layers of gunk and deception. And at the same time, not to do a spiritual bypass, but our spiritual identity, that goes much, much deeper. Even as deep as our material entity goes, that's just a superfluous covering. Yet sometimes, in Safatov, sometimes we go into what that covering is made of. The shame, the envy, the selfishness. Sometimes we go into it. And let's keep in mind, keep at heart, at least philosophically, that that's all superfluous. The real core is the diamond.
Something that came up for me is I'm lucky to have encountered Sabatov, to be able to uncover and then also remember that there is the diamond.
Yeah.
So I think about, and I guess this goes to karma, but people that don't get to encounter.
Yes.
And is that, I guess that's just karma that they don't, or, I mean, maybe they encounter something else that brings them to Krishna consciousness. But I guess I feel sadness around that. That someone could be in the illusion for so long and just not know, because the inherent darkness is there.
And you feel sadness, compassion, pain, that as we said, in the dark, in the dense darkness, lost in the dense darkness, not even knowing that I'm lost in the dense darkness, just not knowing how to go to the light. Well, this points to you, Payal. This points to you needing to do more to share the light. I'm sorry, but this just points also to me. But that's it. So, because let's focus on Prabhupada, right? So he's completely in the light of Krishna consciousness, not just the light of the Brahma Yoga. He's in the light of Krishna, but because he's feeling that pain and compassion, like, you know, times a trillion more than we can conceive. He doesn't need at 70 years old, right? Because he doesn't need at 7 years old, and he's, you know, to get on a ship, a rough ship across the Atlantic. Too hard, you know, we're familiar with his story. But that's it. He seems like people that they have no idea how to go to the light. They just have no clue. It's just like, even you should, there's, when Prabhupada was in America, he'd be taking, he would say like, yeah, like men his age, or like, and maybe like on the shuffleboard or the golf course, and says, they're and wasting their life here, you know, like that.
It's so sad because it's such a conducive time for self-realization.
Yeah. So that's it. We can be like the sun, because like the sun, it's like an arrangement of Krishna with his pure devotee, Surya Narayan, Vivasvan. It's an arrangement, bring physical light and heat to the universe because it's a cold, dark place, right? So like Prabhupada, you can see what he did to give spiritual light, to bring people out of dense darkness. We wouldn't be here in Florida or Switzerland if Prabhupada didn't have that compassion. So, so we can try to, let's put it this way, we can try to like increase our sincere efforts to relieve Prabhupada's burden, because his burden is that everyone gets the light, or at least everyone has a chance. And so we get to help him in his mission. And so Anandini has hand raised.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I feel very encouraged by this class and sharing. Like the first thing that I felt encouraged by was that this universe is by nature darkness.
Yeah.
Just at lunchtime, it was lunchtime here, I was thinking, it takes such an effort to keep my consciousness in something like light.
Yeah.
And not fall into depression and negativity and just like muddy thoughts, not even aware of what I'm thinking. It takes such effort daily, hourly for me and I was just hearing that's because that's the nature of matter. I felt some relief. It's not, I can look at what can I improve but it's even if I'm perfect in my sadhana or perfect in my practice, still the tendency is to go to darkness. So I felt relieved by that. And also, like, well, as you know, in 1 week we start a foundational course here.
Yes.
And yesterday I had this supervision session with you, looking at all my shortcomings, and I was just thinking, wow, all these shortcomings. How can I do the course? And just what you were speaking about right now, that just simply creating an opportunity for others to understand that they are in darkness, even though I'm not very powerful in that, or very, or as powerful as others are, you are, or I could be perhaps. And still I'm making an effort so I can be satisfied with myself. I just feel some appreciation that I get to do the course and not,
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your experience, your sense of hope, hearing that the material world intrinsically, it's a place of dense darkness, meaning like, well, that's discouraging. No, because that way it's like, it's not like, no, there's some mistake. No, there's no mistake. No, this is the way this is complete perfect, this is the way it's supposed to be. And then I'm glad to hear Anandini that, because we can go to, I'm inadequate, this, that, shortcomings, but then you're grateful, you're appreciative that you have this opportunity to do this special service in facilitating the course, to give sincere effort to support people to come to the light, to beginning with sattvic realization. I'm in darkness. I'm in dense darkness. So you get to be an instrument for Srila Prabhupada. Support him to try to relieve his burden. It's a burden of love. And so I'm glad to hear your shift from hopeless to hope, and from some indulgence and shortcomings to appreciation. You get to do this service. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, and also I want to add two things about darkness.
Yes.
When I was thinking of Lord Brahma, when he was created,
Yes.
or when he appeared, he was in darkness too. And
Yes.
there was no panic or no drama about it. Like, he was not resisting the darkness. And just that connection,
Yes.
also created peace for me. Like the darkness doesn't need to be a problem unless I resist it, or I resist the existence of it.
Thanks for that.
And I wanted to share or ask something about, Malini spoke about death, and how medicine is all about avoiding death, and if death is avoided, it's success. And it's something that's been on my mind for a long time. What is the proper way to support someone in a dying process? Where can we learn what the dying process is and how to support others in that?
Thanks for your sharing and question. Yeah, I love that reference to Lord Brahma. So he was in darkness, didn't resist it, experienced his experience. We experience our experience, then we get super soul guidance. He got super soul guidance. Do divine austerity. And that's it. We go to the light by engaging in austerity, giving up immediate gratification of the dark senses, austerity under the guidance of Prabhupada, and then more and more our existence comes to the light. And then death, yeah. So, we prepare for the whole Bhagavatam. It's all about preparing for death. Completely, the context, the story. Maharaj Parikshit, he accepted a curse to die in 7 days. So what did he do? He heard Bhagavatam for 7, and he did a lot of austerity, and he heard Bhagavatam for 7 days. So that's it. He did a lot of austerity, and we don't want to imitate, but he didn't eat or drink for 7 days, and he heard Bhagavatam, and he was blissful, like a kitten in the mouth of its mother, feeling sheltered, warm, protected. So that's the essence. I know probably most or everyone here has heard, both with my father and mother. My mother passed away early in 2010, my father early in 2012. And I was with them chanting Hare Krishna, which is the essence of Bhagavatam. So I feel good that I got to do that service for them. Of course, they had their sincerity. So just like it's the same, whether we're feeling, I'm healthy. Well, you're dying. Look, look at the cute little baby. As let's say, if it's a 1-day-old baby, it means the baby's died for 1 day. Okay. And so death, the process of death is a reality for everyone, whatever the age of the body. And so this Bhakti Yoga, transcendental sound vibration, Janmalapa Prapumsa Ante Narayana Smriti, right? To be absorbed in the names of God. At the time of death, that's regarding the perfection of human life, perfection of human life. So Bhagavatam, it's Maharaj Parikshit, he accepted, yeah, I'm going to die in a week. What to do? And then it's a whole pastime. And then he got, okay, let me absorb myself in Bhagavatam. So we get to absorb ourselves in Bhagavatam, serving Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavatam, and serving the pure representative of Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada. And then we're A-okay in preparing for the process of death. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Like what I get is that I get that I'm so at home in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam that I can, if I happen to be there when someone is dying, that I'm with them and ready to share something that I sense could be giving them strength or supporting them.
Yeah, somehow connecting them with transcendental light. Well, okay, in 2014, yeah, that was with Madeline, and I'll share with that because Madeline was a member of Softove community, and she wasn't like a sadhaka, probably didn't follow principles, but anyhow, so she had some disease. And she was in Palatka, so it's a little distant, almost an hour away, but I think her close friend Jay Ma contacted Malini, but Malini was in Arkansas, right? You're in Arkansas. You don't know how your life led you to Arkansas. It's still a mystery to you. There's something wrong. No, there you were in Arkansas. So Jay Ma, who I know, Anandini, yeah, and so Jay Ma called me and it was like 8 at night, and because she heard that like Madeline's in the hospital or the hospice center, so she said, "Can you be with her?" So it's really quite an arrangement. But I'm using this because it's not like Madeline was chanting japa every day, or it's not like with my parents who were also not sadhaka bhaktas, but I had this relationship with them from the beginning of this body. But also, so it was, so I drove to Palatka, got there like 9 at night, and Madeline's husband was there. His name's Dave. He was also not a sadhaka bhakta, but him and the nurses, they just trusted that I know what I was doing at this juncture. So I just started chanting intensely. And then I started chanting, and then she was incapacitated, but she did a sort of Hari Bol. She was able to move. She did like a Hari Bol. And so I just felt, because thanks to Prabhupada, I know what to do there. And then after about half-hour chanting, then I would sit down and I started singing Nrsingadev prayers. And then she actually started moving, got up. I went from Nrsingadev to Hare Krishna Maharaj, and then she left her body. So yeah, we know what to do. In my father's situation, I came into the room. I just traveled from Philadelphia with Sita. I traveled from Gainesville to suburban Philadelphia with Sita that morning. And there was the rabbi there was my sister, there was social workers, there was medical staff. And Sita and I, we didn't even say hello. We just went, and everyone just kind of said, well, they really seem to know what they're doing. And that's this Prabhupada's mercy, like time of death, we should not be mystified. And I did not care about what will people think, because they don't know what mantra, I know what to do. And then they just got that I know what to do. So that's like a special gift from Prabhupada. And then we can make like a huge difference for people as they leave their body to go like 1,000,000 times towards the light rather than just another trillion births in darkness. So it's a special gift from Prabhupada. We know what to do in that process. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.